Brahmanam vidadati purvam yo vai vedansha prahinoti tasmai tam hadevam atma buddhir prakasham mumukshurvai sharanamaham prapadye. He who, at the beginning of creation, projected Brahma, universal consciousness, and delivered the Vedas unto him, seeking liberation, I take refuge in that effulgent being, whose light turns my understanding towards the Atman. Om, peace, peace, peace. Living on the edge. It's a dangerous place to be in. Reminds me of what Nietzsche says, live dangerously. Of course, it's not meant for the faint-hearted, and it's foolishly quoting danger and certain death. But metaphorically, we are all living on the edge, because it's at the edge where things happen, things expand, there's action, there's potential. One side there is the great known, and on the other side of the edge is the great unknown. And yet the edge is different from the known as well as the unknown. That is the place one really needs to take one's stand. I'm not talking about people being edgy. To be on the edge means to be focused sharply, to be at the forefront where things happen. Take a crude example. The line between the law enforcers and the protesters. That's the place of conflict, and that's a place of action. That's a place when things start happening. So this is living on the edge. It's the edge that we live. Those who live in the hinterland, far away from the edge, are reduced in time to non-entities, living a daily humdrum life. Of course, circumstances and people push us to the edge. So we have the edge, and this is where life is. Swami Vivekananda was asked by a Raja, the king of Khetri, what is life? And Swamiji says, life is a tendency of a being held down by circumstances and is trying to crush it down. That life is trying to develop, it's trying to unfold. And this uncoiling of oneself constitutes life, because it's a struggle of opposing forces. What do we mean by Vedanta? We have a lot of Vedantins, they love Vedanta. Veda is knowledge, not ordinary knowledge, but super-sensory knowledge. It is transcending the senses. Is that ever possible? Yes, the Vedas declare. And the word anta means the fulfillment of knowledge, the fulfillment of the Vedas. It can also mean the end of knowledge, and it's also said to be the edge of knowledge. This is the edge of knowledge, the cutting edge of knowledge. What does it cut? Ignorance. And so Vedanta is the cutting edge of knowledge. We have in one of the Upanishads called the Katha Upanishad a verse which was taken by the 1944 book by Somerset Maugham, The Razor's Edge. He, of course, knew of this verse, and the verse is Uttishtata Jagrata Prapya Varan Nibodata Kshurasya Dhara Nishita Duratya Durgam Patastat Kavayor Vadanti. Arise, awake, and learn by approaching the excellent ones. The wise ones describe the path to be as impassable as a razor's edge, which, when sharpened, is difficult to tread upon. This is Kshurasya Dhara, the razor's edge. And the sage is inviting us to walk on this razor's edge. Why? Well, to get this realization, that great realization of the reality. Swami Vivekananda, in his characteristic way of translation, said, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. Where is this reality? This reality, as the Upanishad continues, Esha Sarveshu Bhuteshu, this reality is in all beings, but hidden, Goda. It is not manifest, but it is seen by the seers with their sharp and one-pointed, subtle intellect. And this is giving us a hint. To be on the edge, to know the reality, one needs to have an intelligence that's sharpened. And the sharpened edge comes through going through trials and tribulations and struggles. We may be cut, we may be bleeding, but we need to go on. Once you are equipped with this idea that this reality can be seen, can be perceived through this kind of highly subtle one-pointed intellect, the razor's edge of the intellect, then life can have a tremendous sense of meaning. This is really living on the edge. In a way, our daily life is actually living on the edge. For instance, there is always a thin line between pain and pleasure. We experience this, we have been experiencing this. There is a thin line between joy and sorrow, between happiness and misery. What is even better is this thin line is not static. It depends on places, circumstances, people, and it shifts. Something that gives you joy at one point of time will give you pain at the other point of time. That line has shifted. So it is, in a way, a very dynamic thin line. The edge is constantly in motion. depending on so many factors that come into us. Take, for instance, another example, the body. The immune system is always at the edge of fighting off all the pathogens and all the infections that come in. If it wasn't, we would have died. First we get sick, and then it develops into a disease and eventually leads to death. So, the immune system itself is actively present there on the thin line. That makes the difference between life and death. In psychology, there is a thin line between sanity and insanity. Yes, we may do things which seems insane even to us on reflection. There are times when we are extremely sane, but the whole thing can just shift. There is also the thin line separating trust from distrust, truth from falsehood. And we know our social and individual life, our personal lives are full of this half-truths and truths and half-lies and white lies and lies. Our social interaction is this. We need to know where exactly to take a stand. Then there is also the idea of selfishness and unselfishness in our own minds. That is really important, because some actions make us selfish, some make us unselfish. This line is a daily reminder of certain thoughts and words and feelings that express themselves as either selfishness or unselfishness. So, when we are standing on that edge, we know that we can take a stand here and fight. In society, we find the sociological aspect. Right now, we are safe here, but there are wars going on. So, a thin line divides war and peace. There are some places which are on the edge of either war or conflicts or something or the other going on. So, we have now become easily understood that this line divides races and classes and people of different economic strata, people of different abilities, people of different intelligences, and it is there running through our bodies, running through our minds, running through the external environment. The external environment also, we find a huge crisis today in climate change. That line is to be taken seriously. So, apart from the social and the economic edges, we have also in the political sphere the us's and them's. It's always that divisive polarity that's there in society. It's apparent, and we are living in that. When it comes to religion, there are these mighty fault lines running everywhere, not only in certain countries, but in stable societies. People of different religious temperaments clash over ideology, over mythology, over other aspects of religion like rituals. It also divides people, religious, the flashpoints where things are so explosive, where forces of linguistics, of economics, of culture and the other traditions all come and clash. So, religions have always moved along these fault lines. Scientists now are trying to peer further and deeper. The reason is they want to find the edge of time. And if they can find that, they can know the birth or the creation of this manifest universe. In everything, people working in sciences or any other branches of knowledge are trying to push the barriers of the known into the realm of the unknown. And that is the great struggle of science, and that's what makes things exciting and rewarding. It is the edge that gives knowledge, it gives peace, as well as on the other side, struggles, pain, sometimes disillusionment, sometimes the feeling of helplessness. But this is the place when we need to take a stand. The human self has been struggling with the ideas of virtue and vice, of morality and immorality. And we know there are certain actions that make us moral, certain actions make us immoral. This is the clash that goes on, and it's continuous. It's also in the mind that bondage and liberation exist. Mana eva karana bandha mokshayo. The mind is the cause of both bondage and liberation. So there's a thin line dividing even that deep psychology. For the Bhagavad Gita says that the self is one's friend and the self is one's enemy. Bandhuratma and Ripuratma. So we get an idea of this living on the edge. It's wonderful. If you look at all the literature, if you look at even all the movies and all the scripts, it's speaking about people struggling, fighting, conquering. They are living on the edge. If we can understand this, it becomes mighty easy to understand what is it. It is trying to push back the present into the future, while at the same time at the edge, it is neither the present nor the future. It is something quite different. It is what is making the future. It is remolding ourselves. So we are living on the edge of things. This is the place where one can change the world. Let me illustrate this with the common philosophy of Taoism. There are these two yin and yang, the black and the white. They constitute accuracy, inaccuracy, heat, cold, pain, pleasure. They are constantly revolving together. One counters the other. At the same time, we have this great, you can say, balance of forces. This is the symbol in Taoism. This is the yin and this is the yang. Or it can be the other way around also. These are the two forces. They are within the circle, the bound. Also at the same time, we have within the yin a dot of yang, and amongst the yang we have a dot of yin. What does it tell you? It tells you the same, that within stability there is instability. Within instability there is stability. Something happens, everything is going on perfectly well, and an event comes and topples the whole thing out. Even though you were stable, So, within each stability and instability, there is also the element of the opposite. So, it is not just two forces countering each other, but each force has an element of the other within it. So, where do we take our stand? And it is as simple. We take our stand neither here, we take our stand on the edge. This is the place where one needs to stand. Neither far away from the line, neither on the other side. This is where you stand. This is what is life, the living on the edge. And it's a beautiful concept, of course, but always both these forces keep you bound. In Vedanta, you've got to transcend all these forces, the positive and the negative. This symbol of Taoism perfectly illustrates the idea of living on the edge. However, to even elaborate it further, what exactly is that line on which you stand? What is the nature of this line? And this we find in the poem that Swamiji wrote when he was in Ridgely Manor on the East Coast. It's a very powerful poem. Behold, it comes in might, the power that is not power, the light that is in darkness, the shade in dazzling light. It is joy that never spoke, and grief unfelt, profound, immortal life unlived, eternal death unmourned. It is not joy nor sorrow, but that which joins them in. It is not night nor morrow, but that which joins them in. It is sweet rest in music and pause in sacred art, the silence between speaking, between two fits of passion. It is the calm of heart. It is beauty never seen, and love that stands alone. It is a song that lives unsung, and knowledge never known. It is death between two lives, and calm between two storms. The void whence rose creation, and to which it will return. To it the teardrop goes, to spread that smiling form. It is the goal of life, and peace its only home. This line is a line that separates being from action. It is a line of peace. It is only here on this line that life can flourish, and it has been seen over and over and over again. Those who run away from that line are defeated. They, as Swami Vivekananda says, are the living dead. What does this tell you? That we've got to stand and face all our inner and outer challenges and keep on pushing this line. There is a mighty concept in Swami Saradananda's biography of Sri Ramakrishna. When we see Sri Ramakrishna, what do we see? Yes, a picture of Sri Ramakrishna, obviously. We read his life, his teachings, and we can understand that this person here who is speaking to us is speaking to us as someone bringing to us knowledge from the other side. Sri Ramakrishna, in his biography, Sri Ramakrishna in his divine play, has been described by his biographer as being established in something called the Bhava Mukha. Mukha is the face, Bhava is existence, the face of existence. He stood at the face of existence. Now, what is this Bhava Mukha? Bhava Mukha is an exalted state of being, where one is on the threshold between the absolute existence and the relative existence. This Sri Ramakrishna was established on this threshold. He experienced the absolute, he experienced the relative, and experienced it in a way that he was identified with both. He was on that line. He was living on the edge of absolute and relative existence. In the biography, we find Sri Ramakrishna was once distraught because his cousin Haladari had, through scriptural arguments, dismissed all his claims of visions, etc., as being just hallucination. And he was weeping. One day in that kuti, in that room, he saw a white mist-like, you can say, fog, as it were, appearing, rising out of the floor and covering that space around. And within that face was a beautiful, golden, living, calm face with long glowing beard. Looking at Sri Ramakrishna, it spoke, "Stay in Bhava Mukha, stay in Bhava Mukha, stay in Bhava Mukha." And the face slowly disappears into that mist, and then the mist once again vanishes. Another time, when Sri Ramakrishna was performing worship in the temple at Dakshineshwar, the Divine Mother Kali appeared in the form of what is known as Rati's mother, and she declares to him, "Stay in Bhava Mukha, Bhava Mukha Thak." And that was the second time he was told. The third time was after he had attained Nirvikalpa Samadhi, which is the highest experience that a person, a superman rather, can ever have while still living. In that state, the person experiences the absolute reality. He was in that state for 6 months while his body was in an advanced state of hibernation, you could say. It was like in suspended animation, or it was more like it was dead. But he was alive in the reality. Generally, it's just 21 days that a person can have such an experience, then the body just falls away like a dry leaf. he was in the 6 months, and the Divine Mother appeared and says, stay in Bhavamukha. That's when Sri Ramakrishna descended from that absolute and came down. So Sri Ramakrishna is now established in that line between the absolute, that's infinite Brahman, is called the Nirguna Brahman, the reality which has got no qualities. It cannot be defined by any words. And you have the entire relative existence, the entire subtle and gross and causal universe are spread out. That person is identified with both. And in that state, when the person identifies with that Bhavamukha, that person is called God. Because it is God who knows both and is established. So he was identified with both. It gives us an insight into what we are meditating and praying to. We are praying to that being who is established in Bhavamukha, is living on the edge of existence, relative and absolute. It's not a clearly defined, but one merges into the other. We too, as I have spoken, we too are living on the edge. Otherwise, life would not cease to exist. We survive because we are on that line, physically, mentally, psychologically, sociologically, everywhere. And here Sri Ramakrishna is also there, established. So when we meditate, we can understand that great, you can say, depth of existence. This is the way to meditate on Sri Ramakrishna. This is the way to meditate on reality. This is the way to meditate on existence. Don't let your body and mind fool you. You are living on the edge, and so is God. Om, peace, peace, peace.